So, you got a few friends you want to play Stellaris with who already play Stellaris, or maybe you want to introduce them to the game, which is awesome. However, you may also have heard how some people playing tabletop campaigns may have caused some problems between friends that not only ruined a great game, but also hurt the relationship. You might think at first that this is not really relevant to Stellaris, but as I've played Stellaris co-op campaigns, it is more relevant than you might think. So, to prevent this issue, most tabletop role-playing games tend to have what is known as a Session Zero. This is where all players get together and decide what type of game, system, and setting they're going to be playing in. This is very important, because it sets expectations and the norms within your group. In this Session Zero, you set up your boundaries and say what is allowed and what is not allowed. And some players, for example, in some DMs, they say no sexual encounters allowed. These kinds of sexual encounters are allowed. This sort of stuff is allowed, not allowed. This determines and sets the tone of the game that you're going to be playing. And similar thing in Stellaris. Because if you're playing a co-op game, a PvP game, or a game in a special setting such as Star Trek, you need to have these things laid out. So it is very important to set expectations and norms within your group. You might not think this is an issue in Stellaris, but it definitely is, as I have just said. And if you have played with any competitive players in Stellaris or any games that have this co-op setting or multiplayer setting, in those settings there tends to be some ground rules and expectations before even the game begins through announcements before the game. Like if you're playing a tournament game, there are oftentimes some rules that ban certain units, that ban certain strategies, things of that sort. So, how do you organize a Session Zero? The way you organize a Session Zero in Stellaris is very simple. Since there is no such thing as a game master per se, there is no one but the players themselves to enforce these rules. The way you start is ask all the players before the game who have agreed to play the game what type of game do they want to play. So you should want them to have at least some basic familiarity with the game, and if there are players who are new, you should go to play with some co-op game where you can assist those newer players so they can enjoy the game. Some basic questions you can cover are like this. Is this going to be a PvP or cooperative game? So is there going to be like any player versus player going on, things like that? Are some races or traits, etc. are banned? Is there anything that any of the players consider to be overpowered? As the time of writing, currently in Stellaris, machine empires and total war empires are considered to be banned in most games. If it is a PvP game, is there a truce period to prevent some early game rushes? Is there going to be any roleplay or not? So this is very important for any kind of game you're going to have, is what level of roleplay are you going to have? Because to some people, they really like it. To some, this is why they play. And some are not really happy with roleplay. They consider it being cringy. I understand all positions. So how much roleplay is there going to be? Will you be drafting agreements and writing between sessions, or are verbal agreements enough? Are there specific conditions where wars between players are allowed? Will there be roleplay sessions between these sessions, or perhaps during or before sessions? Like, do players have to address each other under the name and the title of their ruler? Are there gonna be like summits between sessions perhaps, which can add some interesting stuff? Are there any rules for war declarations, such as have to draft a document and players vote out of character to see if this is legitimate? This is to, not have people who are just going to war for opportunistic reasons, which did happen in the past, but oftentimes you need a cause of war for these to be, legitimate. Or if, let's say, somebody wants to have a illegitimate war, are there going to be any repercussions? So what will you do in case a player misses a session? So in one role-playing game that I played, when a player missed a session, let's say in a setting where you have over 10 players, when a player misses a session, the player that has missed the session will receive the save, take a look, and will request save game changes, which is one of the very nice things that the Stellaris offers. Do players have any preferences for game settings such as endgame crisis states and fallen empires? From my experience, it is important to make sure everyone understands these rules and have them be explicitly written out. For example, if you have all agreed from the start that this is going to be a game where everyone is on their own and someone is angry that they got war declared on them by another human player, you have to point to these rules that you have all agreed, and so as not to ruin the whole campaign. Or if someone goes to war with an AI without just cause, just because they are an AI, while you all have agreed that this is a role-playing campaign, you need to pause the game and clarify or request a pause so that they can submit their reasons to keep immersion if this is something that you all have agreed upon. The way that the games on WSC Discord are organized is that you have to have read the rules of the event that you're playing in. And when the event begins, before the game is unpaused, the organizer reminds everyone of the rules. All of them, and I mean the whole shebang with no racism, etc., like these community rules in general. The organizers check before the game begins if someone is using any banned builds, or if it is found during the game, the player is removed from the game and later punished accordingly. These are the basic things you have to do when you're running a community. But these things are still great practices if you're running your own game. I'd like to give a special shout out to Neil from WSC Discord and Mr. Freaky, also from WSC Discord, for having a community very well organized and host the Stellaris campaign. So even if you do not have friends that you can play Stellaris with, you can definitely hop in there and join in with some players, and which they have regular campaigns, some co-op, some PvP campaigns that they organize on their Discord. And, well, let me know if you have any questions and in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.